The command deck of the Imperial flagship Eternal Dominion was quiet. It was always quiet. Admiral liked it that way. He had served the Galactic Empire for over 40 cycles, and in all that time, he had learned one simple truth. Silence meant control. He stood at the center of the massive bridge, his tall gray body casting a long shadow across the polished floor. Around him, dozens of officers worked at their stations. They moved without sound. They spoke in whispers. No one wanted to disturb the admiral. Looked out through the massive viewing window. Stars stretched across the darkness like scattered diamonds. This sector of space belonged to the Empire. Every planet, every moon, every rock floating in the void was under their control. The Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 10,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of species. They had crushed every rebellion. They were unstoppable. Or so believed. A young officer named approached him slowly. The officer's blue skin was pale, and his 4 eyes blinked nervously. He held a data tablet in his shaking hands. Admiral said, his voice barely above a whisper, "There is something strange on our long-range scanners." Turned his head slowly. He did not like being disturbed. What kind of strange? "A ship, sir. It just appeared at the edge of our territory. It came out of nowhere." Narrowed his eyes. "Ships do not come out of nowhere. Check your equipment." "I did, sir, 3 times. The readings are correct." Handed him the tablet. "The ship is real, but we cannot identify it. It does not match any known design in our database." Took the tablet and studied the image on the screen. The ship was small compared to Imperial vessels. It had a strange shape, with smooth curves and a dark hull that seemed to absorb light. There were no weapons visible on its surface. No shields that the scanners could detect. It looked almost harmless. But something about it made feel uneasy. "Where did it come from?" he asked. Swallowed hard. "We traced its trajectory backward. The origin point is a small solar system near the outer rim, a system we have been watching for a long time." "Which system?" "The one they call Sol, sir. The planet is called Earth." Went very still. Earth. He knew that name. Every officer in the Empire knew that name. Earth was a primitive world filled with primitive creatures. Humans, they called themselves. The Empire had discovered them 200 years ago and had decided to leave them alone. They were too weak to bother with. Their technology was laughable. They were short. They were nothing. "That is impossible," said flatly. "Humans cannot travel between stars. They barely have the technology to leave their own planet." "That is what we thought, sir," replied. "But the data does not lie. That ship came from Earth." Stared at the image for a long moment. Then he walked to his command chair and sat down. The chair was made of black metal and covered with symbols of conquest. He pressed a button on the armrest. "Attention all stations," he announced. "Set course to intercept the unknown vessel, maximum speed." The Eternal Dominion hummed as its massive engines came to life. Around it, 6 other warships followed. Together, they formed the most powerful fleet in this sector of space. They had destroyed entire civilizations. One small ship from a primitive world would be nothing. The journey took several hours. Spent that time studying every piece of information the Empire had collected about humans. He read about their history of wars, their short lives, their strange emotions, their foolish hopes. They were weak creatures who fought among themselves constantly. How could they have built a starship? When they finally reached the location, stood up and walked to the viewing window. There it was, the human ship. It was even smaller than he had expected, floating alone in the darkness of space. It made no move to run. It made no move to attack. It just sat there, waiting. "Open a channel," commanded. "Channel open, sir," an officer replied. Spoke in a loud, clear voice. "Unknown vessel. This is Admiral of the Galactic Imperial Fleet. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself immediately and prepare to be boarded. If you resist, you will be destroyed." For a moment, there was only silence. Then the communication screen flickered to life and saw something he had never expected. A human face. It was a young male with dark hair and calm eyes. He wore a simple uniform with no medals or symbols of rank. Behind him could see other humans moving around a small bridge. They did not look scared. They did not look worried. If anything, they looked curious. "Hello," the human said in perfect Imperial common tongue. "My name is Captain. I represent the United Earth Space Command. We come in peace." Felt his jaw tighten. "You speak our language." "We have been listening to your communications for a very long time," replied with a small smile. "Your encryption is not as strong as you think." This was wrong. All of this was wrong. Had spent his entire life believing that the Empire was supreme, that no species could match their power, that humans were nothing but primitive insects waiting to be crushed. But this human spoke to him without fear. This human had traveled across the stars in a ship that should not exist. This human had broken through Imperial security like it was nothing. "How is this possible?" demanded. "Your species does not have this technology." Tilted his head slightly. "Admiral, with respect, you have no idea what our species has. You looked at us 200 years ago and decided we were not worth your time. You stopped watching. You stopped learning, but we never stopped growing." Felt a cold sensation spreading through his chest. It was something he had not felt in a very long time. It took him a moment to recognize it. "Fear." "What do you want?" he asked. "Right now, just to talk. We have been alone for a long time, Admiral. We are ready to meet our neighbors." Paused. "The question is, are you ready to meet us?" Did not answer. He could not answer. He just stood there, staring at the small human ship floating in the void, and wondered if everything he believed was about to change. On the other ships of the fleet, officers whispered to each other. The word spread quickly. A human ship. A real human ship. Impossible, unthinkable, and yet there it was. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had never been surprised. They had never been afraid. Until now. Captain closed the communication channel and turned to face his crew. The bridge of the horizon was small but efficient. Every system worked perfectly. Every light glowed steady and bright. The ship was humanity's first true starship and was proud to command it. "Well," said from the navigation console, "that went better than I expected. He did not shoot us immediately." Allowed himself a small smile. Was his navigator and oldest friend. They had grown up together in the same city, trained together in the same academy, and dreamed together of reaching the stars. Now here they were, standing at the edge of known space, talking to aliens. "Give him time," said from the engineering station. "I am reading power surges from their weapons systems. They are getting ready to attack." Was the ship's chief engineer. He was a quiet man who preferred machines to people. He could fix anything, build anything, and improve anything. The horizon ran so smoothly because of his work. Nodded slowly. "How many ships?" 7. The big one is a command ship. The others are heavy cruisers. Looked up from his console. "Captain, each of those cruisers is 50 times our size. If they attack, we cannot fight them the normal way." "Who said anything about normal?" replied with a grin. "Is the drive ready?" "The fold space drive is fully charged and waiting." Walked to the center of the bridge and looked out through the viewing window. He could see the Imperial ships in the distance. They were massive, covered with weapons and armor. They looked like predators waiting to strike. Any other ship would have run. Any other species would have surrendered. But humans were different. Sora said, "What is our communication status?" Commander Sora turned in her chair. She was the ship's first officer and communications specialist. Her job was to make sure they could talk to anyone, anywhere, in any language. She had spent 10 years studying alien transmissions before joining this mission. "All channels are open," she reported. "I am also detecting a lot of chatter between the Imperial ships. They are confused, Captain. They do not understand how we got here or what we want. Good, confusion is useful. Sat down in the captain's chair. Open a channel to Earth Command. Sara worked her console, and a moment later, a familiar face appeared on the main screen. General Park was the head of Earth's space program. He was an old man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had fought for decades to make this mission happen. Captain, the general said, "Report." "We have made first contact, sir. The Galactic Empire has sent a fleet to intercept us. 7 warships, including a command vessel led by an admiral named." General Park nodded slowly. "How do they seem?" "Surprised, scared maybe. They did not expect us to be here. They thought we were still primitive." That was the plan. The general allowed himself a rare smile. "How is the crew?" Looked around at his people, was checking the navigation systems, was monitoring the engines. Sara was tracking enemy communications. They were all calm. They were all ready. "The crew is excellent, sir. We are ready for whatever happens." "Good. Remember your mission, Captain. You are there to show them who we are. Not to start a war, but not to show weakness either. Humanity has been hiding for 200 years. It is time to step into the light." "Understood, sir." The channel closed and turned back to the viewing window. The Imperial fleet was moving closer. They were trying to surround the horizon, cutting off any escape route. It was a classic military strategy. They expected the small human ship to panic and surrender. "They are hailing us again," Sora announced. "Put it through." Admiral's face appeared on the screen. He looked angry now. His gray skin had darkened, and his eyes were narrow with fury. "Human vessel," said coldly, "you have one final chance. Power down your engines and prepare for boarding. If you do not comply, we will open fire. This is not a request." Stood up from his chair. "Admiral, I told you before, we come in peace. We have no intention of fighting you." "Then surrender." "No." The word hung in the air like a challenge. Stared at through the screen, his expression shifting from anger to disbelief. "You are one small ship," said slowly. "We have 7 warships. You have no weapons, you have no shields. What makes you think you can refuse?" Smiled. It was a calm, confident smile that seemed to irritate the Admiral even more. "You are right," said. "We are one small ship. We have no weapons and no shields, but we do have something you do not understand, something you cannot see on your scanners." "And what is that?" "Hope." His face twisted with contempt. Hope is nothing. Hope is what the weak cling to before they die." "Maybe for your people," replied. "But for humans, hope is everything. It is what drives us to keep going when everything seems impossible. It is what made us build this ship when everyone said it could not be done. It is what brought us across the stars to meet you." He took a step closer to the screen. "Admiral, your empire has ruled this galaxy for thousands of years. You have conquered hundreds of species. You have never lost. And because of that, you have forgotten something important." "What have we forgotten?" "That the universe is full of surprises." Turn 2. Activate the fold space drive. His fingers danced across his console. "Drive active. Where do you want to go, Captain?" Looked back at the screen directly into his eyes, right behind them. The horizon vanished. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, chaos erupted. Officers shouted in confusion. Alarms blared. The scanners showed nothing where the human ship had been a second ago. "Where did they go?" roared. "Find them." "Sir," screamed from his station. "They are behind us. The human ship is directly behind our fleet." Spun around. Through the rear viewing window, he could see the small human vessel floating calmly in space. It had traveled from one side of the fleet to the other in less than a heartbeat. No engine trail. No warning. Just there, then not there, then somewhere else entirely. "That is impossible," whispered. "No ship can move like that. No technology can do that." But the evidence was right in front of him. The humans had done the impossible. They had developed technology that made the Empire's fastest ships look like children's toys. On the horizon, Captain watched the confusion spread through the enemy fleet. Ships were turning in every direction, trying to track the small human vessel. They were panicking. They had never faced anything like this. "I think we got their attention," said. "That was the plan," replied. "Open a channel to the Admiral again." When his face appeared on the screen, he looked like a different person. The arrogance was gone. The anger was gone. In their place was something new. Something had been hopping to see. "Respect." Admiral said calmly, "I believe we have more to discuss. Do you agree?" Did not answer for a long moment. He just stared at the human captain, his mind trying to process everything he had just witnessed. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Yes, I believe we do." The confrontation was over, but the real conversation was just beginning. Admiral sat alone in his private chamber aboard the Eternal Dominion. The room was dark except for a single light above his desk. In front of him were dozens of reports, sensor readings, and analysis documents. He had been staring at them for hours, trying to understand what he had witnessed. The human ship had disappeared and reappeared, not traveled, not moved, simply vanished from one point in space and appeared at another. It broke every law of physics that the Empire understood. It should have been impossible. And yet it happened. A chime sounded at his door. "Enter," said. Walked in, carrying another data tablet. The young officer looked exhausted. Dark circles had formed under his 4 eyes. He had not slept since the encounter began. "Sir, the Science Division has completed their analysis." And hesitated. "They do not know how the humans did it. The technology is beyond anything in our records. They are calling it fold space travel. The ship did not move through space. It folded space around itself." Closed his eyes. Fold space travel was a theory, just a theory. Imperial scientists had discussed it for centuries but always concluded it was impossible. The energy required would be enormous. The calculations would be beyond any computer. The risks would be unimaginable. But the humans had done it. A species the Empire had dismissed as primitive had achieved something the greatest minds in the galaxy said could never be done. "How?" asked quietly. "How did they advance so quickly? 200 years ago, they could barely leave their atmosphere. Now they have technology that makes ours look ancient." Shook his head. "We do not know, sir, but there is something else." "What?" "The human captain has requested a meeting, face to face. He wants to come aboard the Eternal Dominion." Looked up sharply. "He wants to board my ship." "Yes, sir, alone and unarmed. He says he wants to talk." For a long moment said nothing. His mind was racing through possibilities. This could be a trap. The human could be carrying weapons they could not detect, or it could be genuine. The human could actually want peace. "Let him come," finally said. "But keep security on high alert. If he tries anything, kill him immediately." 1 hour later, a small shuttle separated from the horizon and flew toward the Imperial flagship. The shuttle was tiny, barely big enough for one person. It had no weapons, no shields, nothing that could pose a threat. It docked with the Eternal Dominion smoothly and without incident. Captain stepped out into the hangar bay. He was immediately surrounded by 20 Imperial soldiers, each one pointing a weapon at his chest. He did not seem bothered. He simply raised his hands and smiled. "I come in peace," he said calmly. "Please take me to your admiral." The soldiers led him through the massive ship, looked around with obvious curiosity, studying the walls, the doors, the technology. Everything was bigger and more complex than human designs. But notice something else too. Everything was old. The designs were ancient, unchanged for thousands of years. The Empire had not innovated in a very long time. They reached the command deck and was brought before Admiral. The two stood facing each other for the first time in person. was much taller than his gray body towering over the small human, but did not look intimidated. He looked curious, interested, even friendly. "Admiral," said with a slight bow, "thank you for agreeing to meet with me." Studied the human carefully. Up close, looked even more unremarkable. Small, soft, fragile. How could such a weak creature create such powerful technology? "You have caused quite a disturbance," said coldly. "The High Council is demanding answers. They want to know who you are and what you want." "That is fair," replied. "I will tell you everything, but first may I ask you a question?" Hesitated, then nodded. "Why did your empire ignore us for so long?" The question surprised. He had expected demands or threats or negotiations, not a simple question. "Your species was weak," answered honestly. "You had nothing we wanted. Your planet had limited resources. Your technology was primitive. You were not worth the effort of conquest." Nodded slowly. "That is what we thought, and honestly, Admiral, we are grateful for it." "Grateful?" "Yes. When we first discovered your empire 200 years ago, we were terrified. We detected your communications, studied your ships from afar, learned about your conquests. We knew that if you noticed us, you would destroy us, so we made a decision." "What decision?" "To hide, to stay quiet, to let you think we were nothing while we prepared for the day you would come for us." Felt a chill run down his spine. "You have been preparing for 200 years. Every day, every hour, every moment. We built underground facilities. We developed new sciences. We created technologies you have never imagined. And we did it all in secret, waiting for the right time to reveal ourselves." "Why now? Why reveal yourselves now?" His expression grew serious. "Because we have learned something important, something that changes everything." "What have you learned?" "There is a threat coming, a threat that will destroy everything in this galaxy. Your empire, our planet, every living thing. We have detected it at the edge of known space, moving slowly but steadily toward us." His eyes widened. "What kind of threat?" "We do not know exactly. Our sensors detected massive energy signatures traveling through the void between galaxies. Something is coming, Admiral. Something ancient and powerful, and it will arrive within the next 50 years. The command deck went silent. Every officer stopped working and stared at the human captain. This was not what anyone had expected. This was not about territory or power or conquest. This was about survival. "Why should I believe you?" asked. Reached into his pocket slowly. The guards raised their weapons, but he simply pulled out a small device and held it up. "This contains all of our sensor data. Every reading, every analysis, every conclusion. You can verify it yourself. We are not lying, Admiral. We have no reason to lie." Took the device carefully. It was small and simple, but when he connected it to his console, the data that appeared made his blood run cold. The readings were unmistakable. Something massive was approaching from the void. Something that dwarfed anything the Empire had ever encountered. "By the ancient stars," whispered, "this cannot be real." "It is real," said quietly, "and we cannot face it alone. Neither can you. Your empire has the numbers, the ships, the soldiers. We have the technology, the innovation, the ideas. Together we might have a chance. Apart we will all die." Stared at the data for a long time. Everything he believed about humans was wrong. They were not primitive. They were not weak. They were survivors just like his people, and they had come not to conquer but to warn. "What do you propose?" finally asked. "An alliance. True partnership between your empire and Earth. We share our technology. You share your resources. We work together to prepare for what is coming." "The High Council will never agree. They do not trust anyone outside the Empire." Smiled sadly. "Then you will have to convince them, Admiral, because this is not about trust anymore. This is about survival, and when that threat arrives, it will not care whether we are friends or enemies. It will destroy us all the same." looked at the human captain standing before him, so small, so fragile, so brave. In that moment, something changed inside the old admiral. For the first time in his long career, he saw a path forward that did not involve conquest or destruction. He saw hope. "I will speak to the council," said slowly. "I make no promises, but I will try." Bowed again. "That is all I ask, thank you, Admiral." As the human was escorted back to his shuttle, stood alone on the command deck, staring at the data on his screen. The galaxy was changing. Everything was changing. And at the center of it all was one small ship from a world the Empire had forgotten. A human ship. Impossible, unthinkable, and yet undeniably real. The news spread through the Empire like fire through dry grass. It started with whispers among the officers aboard the Eternal Dominion. Then those whispers reached the other ships in the fleet. Then those ships sent messages to their home stations. Within hours, the entire Imperial communication network was buzzing with the same unbelievable story. Humans had achieved fold space travel. Humans had technology the Empire could not understand. Humans had been hiding for 200 years, growing stronger while the Empire ignored them. Everything the galaxy believed about the small blue planet called Earth was wrong. On the capital world of, the High Council gathered in emergency session. The council chamber was an enormous room built from black stone and ancient metals. 12 seats surrounded a central platform, and in those seats sat the most powerful beings in the Empire. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had never faced a crisis like this. High Counselor sat at the head of the chamber. She was old, even by Imperial standards. Her gray skin had faded to almost white, and her eyes held the weight of centuries. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had ordered the destruction of entire civilizations. Nothing surprised her anymore. Until now. "Tell me again," she said slowly, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Tell me everything Admiral reported." A young aide stepped forward nervously. "High Counselor, Admiral confirms that the human ship demonstrated fold space travel. The ship disappeared from one location and appeared at another instantly. Our scientists cannot explain how it was done." "Cannot explain," Counselor interrupted angrily. "We have the greatest minds in the galaxy. How can they not explain simple ship movement?" "Because it is not simple, Counselor," the aide replied. "Fold space travel requires bending the fabric of reality itself. Our scientists have studied the theory for centuries and concluded it was impossible. The energy required would drain a star. The calculations would take 1,000 computers working for 1,000 years, and yet the humans did it with a ship smaller than our shuttles." Silence fell over the chamber. The counselors looked at each other with expressions ranging from disbelief to fear to anger. For 10,000 years, the Empire had been the supreme power in the galaxy. They had the best ships, the best weapons, the best technology. The idea that a species they had dismissed as primitive could surpass them was unthinkable. "There must be a mistake," Counselor said. "Perhaps our sensors malfunctioned. Perhaps it was some kind of trick." "No trick," High Counselor replied quietly. "I have reviewed the data myself. The humans have achieved something we thought impossible. The question now is what we do about it." "We destroy them," Counselor said immediately. "Send the entire fleet to their planet. Burn it to ashes before they become a real threat." "And how do you suggest we do that?" asked. "Their ship can appear anywhere at any time. What if they have more ships? What if they can fold space an entire fleet? We could send 1,000 warships and they could appear behind every single one." Fell silent, he had no answer. "There is more," the aide continued hesitantly. "Admiral also reported that the humans came with a warning. They claim there is a threat approaching from outside the galaxy, something massive and dangerous. They want to form an alliance with the Empire to face it together." "An alliance," Counselor laughed bitterly. "With primitives. They come to us with impossible technology and wild stories about threats from the void, and we are supposed to trust them. The data supports their claim, the aide said. Admiral analyzed their sensor readings. There is something approaching from beyond known space, something our own sensors were too weak to detect. Leaned forward in her chair. Show me. The aide activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. A three-dimensional map of the galaxy appeared, with the Empire's territory marked in red. At the edge of the map, beyond the spiral arms, a cluster of dots glowed with ominous purple light. These are the energy signatures the humans detected, the aide explained. They are massive, larger than anything we have ever recorded, and they are moving toward our galaxy at incredible speed. Based on the calculations, they will arrive within 50 years. The counselors stared at the display in horror. The purple dots looked small on the map, but the numbers attached to them were terrifying. Each dot represented an energy source larger than a star. There were hundreds of them. What are they? Asked quietly. We do not know, High Counselor. Neither do the humans, but whatever they are coming. And when they arrive, nothing in this galaxy will be safe. For a long moment, no one spoke. The weight of the revelation pressed down on every person in the chamber. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had never feared anything. But now, for the first time, they faced something truly unknown. The humans could be lying, Counselor said, but his voice lacked conviction. This could be a trick to make us lower our guard. To what end? Replied. They have technology we cannot match. If they wanted to attack us, they could do so without warning or deception. Why would they need to trick us? Maybe they want something from us. Resources, territory, slaves. According to Admiral, they asked for none of those things. They asked only for cooperation, partnership, alliance. Stood up slowly and walked to the holographic display. She stared at the approaching threat, her ancient eyes filled with thoughts no one could read. I have ruled this empire for 300 years, she said finally. In that time I have made many difficult decisions. I have ordered wars. I have commanded genocides. I have done terrible things to protect our people and our power. I am not proud of all of it, but I believed it was necessary. She turned to face the other counselors. But this is different. This threat is not something we can conquer or destroy. It is something we must survive. And if the humans are telling the truth, if this danger is real, then we cannot survive it alone. You cannot be serious, protested. You want to ally with them, with primitives who only just learned to travel between stars. I want to survive, replied coldly. And right now, those primitives have better technology than we do. They built something we said was impossible. They did in 200 years what we failed to do in 10,000. Maybe it is time we stopped underestimating them. The chamber erupted in argument. Some counselors agreed with, others sided with. Voices rose in anger and fear as the debate raged back and forth. The unity of the council was cracking under the weight of this impossible situation. Finally raised her hand and silence fell. We will send a diplomatic envoy to Earth, she declared. We will learn more about these humans and their technology. We will verify their claims about the approaching threat. And then, based on what we learn, we will decide our next steps. And if they are lying, asked, then we will destroy them. But if they are telling the truth, paused. If they are telling the truth, then they may be the only hope any of us have. She looked around the chamber one final time. The Empire has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years by being strong, by being ruthless, by crushing anyone who challenged us. But strength alone will not save us from what is coming. We need something new, something different. Her eyes grew hard. We need allies, even if those allies are humans. The council session ended, but the panic was just beginning. Across the Empire, word spread of the human ship and the coming threat. Fear replaced arrogance. Uncertainty replaced confidence. The galaxy was changing and no one knew what would come next. On the horizon, Commander Sora listened to the Imperial communications with a quiet smile. "They are scared," she reported to Captain. "Good," replied. "Fear is the first step toward understanding, and understanding is the first step toward peace." He looked out at the stars. "We have waited 200 years for this moment. Now the real work begins." 6 months had passed since the horizon first appeared in Imperial space. In that time, everything had changed. Admiral stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Unity Station. The station orbited a neutral planet between Imperial territory and Earth's solar system. It was the first structure ever built through cooperation between humans and the Empire. Half of its design came from Imperial engineers. The other half came from human architects. The result was something neither species could have created alone. Through the massive windows, could see ships from both civilizations coming and going. Imperial cruisers docked beside human vessels. Scientists from different worlds walked together through the corridors, sharing knowledge that had been secret for centuries. It was a sight that would have been unimaginable just a year ago. "You look troubled, Admiral." Turned to find Captain standing beside him. The human was still small and fragile-looking, but had learned not to judge by appearance. Behind those calm eyes was a mind sharper than any blade. "Not troubled," replied. "Just thinking. 6 months ago I was ready to destroy your ship. I thought you were nothing. Now here we are, building a future together." "Does that bother you?" "It should. My entire life was built on the belief that the Empire was supreme, that we were the greatest power in the galaxy, that no one could challenge us." Shook his head slowly. "Now I know that was all illusion. We were strong because no one stronger had appeared. The moment you arrived, everything we believed fell apart." Nodded understandingly. "Change is never easy, especially when it challenges everything you thought was true." "How do your people handle it? You went from hiding in fear to standing as equals with the Empire. That must have been difficult." "It was terrifying," admitted. "When I flew the horizon into your territory, I did not know if I would survive. I did not know if humanity would survive. All I knew was that hiding was no longer an option. The threat is coming, and we needed allies." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the ships move through space. "The Council has made its final decision," said. "High Counselor announced it this morning." "What did they decide?" "Full alliance. Not just cooperation, but true partnership. Human ambassadors will be welcomed on Imperial worlds. Imperial citizens will be allowed to visit Earth. Trade routes will be established. Technology will be shared openly. We will face the coming threat together." Let out a slow breath. I was not sure they would agree. Counselor was very opposed. Counselor changed his mind after he saw the latest threat analysis. The approaching entities are closer than we first thought, and larger, much larger. Even he realized that we cannot face them alone. Fear can be a powerful motivator. "It was not just fear," said quietly. "Something else changed his mind. Something I think you understand better than most of my people." "What is that?" "Hope saw your people and your technology and realized something important. If humans could achieve the impossible in 200 years, then maybe together we can achieve even more. Maybe we actually have a chance." Smiled. "That is all we ever wanted to give you. Not fear, not submission, just hope." Turned to face the human captain directly. "I must ask you something. Something I have wondered about since our first meeting." "Ask." "Why did you come yourself? You are the captain of humanity's first starship. You are one of the most important people on your planet. Why risk your life by flying alone into enemy territory?" Was quiet for a moment before answering. "Because I needed to show you who we really are. Not our technology, not our weapons, not our power, but our courage, our willingness to take risks, our belief that the impossible is just something no one has tried hard enough to do." He looked out at the stars. If I had sent a drone or a robot, you would have seen machines. You would have responded with machines of your own. But I came in person because humans are not machines. We are dreamers. We are believers. We are stubborn fools who refuse to accept that anything is truly impossible. Nodded slowly, and that stubbornness led you to fold space travel. Among other things, our history is filled with people who were told something could not be done and did it anyway. Flight, space travel, medicine. Every great achievement started with someone refusing to accept limits. The Empire lost that quality long ago, admitted. We became comfortable with our power. We stopped dreaming and started maintaining. Our technology has not truly advanced in 5,000 years. We simply refined what we already had. Then maybe that is what you can learn from us, suggested. Not just our technology, but our way of thinking, our willingness to fail and try again, our belief that tomorrow can always be better than today. A chime sounded, and Sora's voice came through's communicator. Captain, the diplomatic delegation from Earth has arrived. General Park is requesting your presence in the main conference room. On my way, replied. He turned to, will you join me? The general wants to discuss the joint military preparations. Hesitated. 3 months ago, the idea of working with humans would have been unthinkable. Now it felt natural, right, perhaps even necessary. Yes, he said, I will come. They walked together through the corridors of Unity Station. Imperial soldiers and human officers passed them without alarm, nodding respectfully to both. The old hatred and suspicion were fading. In their place, something new was growing. Not quite friendship yet, but the beginning of trust. The conference room was filled with representatives from both civilizations. General Park sat at one end of the long table, his weathered face showing the strain of the past months. High Counselor sat at the other end, her ancient eyes watching everything with careful attention. Between them sat engineers, scientists, military officers, and diplomats from both worlds. Thank you all for coming, General Park began. As you know, the threat continues to approach. Our latest projections indicate we have approximately 47 years before first contact. That sounds like a long time, but it is not. We have much to do. Counselor nodded. The Empire is mobilizing its full resources. Every shipyard is producing new vessels. Every academy is training new officers. But we need more than numbers. We need the technology the humans have developed. And you will have it, Park replied. Starting today, we are sharing our complete fold space research with Imperial scientists. In exchange, we request access to your manufacturing capabilities and resource networks. Agreed. The discussions continued for hours. Plans were made. Resources were allocated. Problems were identified and solutions proposed. It was slow, difficult work, but it was progress. Real progress toward a common goal. When the meeting finally ended, found himself standing alone on the observation deck again. The stars seemed brighter now, more hopeful. Whatever was coming from the void, humanity would not face it alone. Joined him, her eyes bright with excitement. Can you believe this is actually happening? We spent 200 years hiding, preparing, waiting, and now here we are, partners with the greatest empire in the galaxy. It is just the beginning, replied. The hard work is still ahead. I know, but still it feels good. For the first time, I actually think we might win. We will. Together we will find a way. That is what humans do. Appeared in the doorway. Captain, the Horizon is ready for departure. Earth Command wants us to escort the first trade convoy back home. Nodded, tell them we will launch in 1 hour. As he prepared to leave, Admiral approached one final time. The old warrior looked different now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something softer, something more thoughtful. Captain said formally, before you leave, I want to say something. Of course. When you first appeared in our space, I thought you were the enemy. I thought humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated. I was wrong, more wrong than I have ever been about anything. He extended his hand in the human gesture of respect, had taught him this custom weeks ago. You have shown me that strength is not just about weapons and power. It is about courage, about hope, about refusing to give up even when everything seems impossible. The Empire has much to learn from your people. Took the Admiral's hand and shook it firmly. And we have much to learn from yours. Together we will face whatever comes. Together we will survive. Nodded, safe travels, Captain. May we meet again under peaceful stars. We will, Admiral, I promise. The Horizon departed Unity Station and set course for Earth. Behind it, the lights of the station glowed bright against the darkness of space. Ahead, the stars of home waited. The galaxy was changing, the old order was ending, and in its place something new was being born. An alliance, a partnership, a friendship between species who had once been strangers. The Empire had freaked out when they first saw the human ship. They had thought it was impossible, but humans had a way of making the impossible possible. And this was just the beginning.